Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Professor.
So we'll start with pragmatics, and unlike with semantics, it's not about the words that we have in our sentences or in our utterances that will be of paramount importance. That's why we have said last time, remember when I've met for a couple of minutes, a single utterance may have overlapping purposes. I've asked you to maybe read the chapter. So what do you think this means? A single utterance may have overlapping purposes. Okay, let's not corner you from the beginning. Let's start step by step. So the first thing we'll do, we'll see the forms of usual sentences because we'll need that later. We'll need to see how sentences are formed, usual sentences are formed, and then what purpose each form serves. This is what we'll be doing in this session basically, but we will know that the form of the sentence and the purpose of the utterance may not be the same all the time. So sentences are traditionally designated declarative if they tell something, interrogative if they ask, or imperative if they request action. So I think there is nothing to explain here. So what about this one? Did you really like that silly book?
Professor?
Yes? Any more?
It is a rhetorical question.
Yes, a rhetorical question, yes. So it means
Yes.
normally? First, the first thing you get from this one is that the one producing the utterance doesn't really like the book, and he thinks the book is silly, or she thinks the book is silly. So that might be the first thing. So maybe just expressing their own opinion. So to some extent, they are telling something and not really maybe asking the question. And we will see that they may be just asking for confirmation or something like that. What about this one? It's very warm in here with that window closed. So can we say that this is a declarative sentence?
Yes.
Yes. In a sense, it is a declarative sentence. But if you think about it,
Sir?
it can be some yes, mate.
It can be also a request. The speaker wants the addressee to move and open the window.
Yes. So
Professor,
maybe the
it can
first
also
example. Yes.
a confirmation needs a confirmation from the addressee, like it's warm about the weather.
Yes. Maybe if we are just talking about the weather, we'll say that it is warm in here, and we'll say yes, it is warm. And maybe the window cannot be closed, cannot be open. So maybe that's the problem that they have there. Or maybe they are just asking them to. So maybe it is an imperative of some sort, and they are asking them to take action and to open the window. So it depends. Have a good time. This one looks like an imperative. So I'm giving you an order. Have a good time. Is this what it serves?
No, Professor.
Normally, again, no. It is some sort of, let's say, let's call it now. Let's call it a formality. So we just say it. It doesn't really mean anything. Did you know it's raining? Again, it looks like a question, but it is, to some extent, just giving information. I suppose you will be going away for the holiday. It looks like declarative sentence as if they are providing information, but actually they are asking a question. So it depends. The form of naturalness does not necessarily coincide with the speaker's real intention. That's the purpose of what we are doing here. So we start with statements. Normally subject, verb, and then perhaps an object, because you know that we have intransitive verbs sometimes, complement or non-verbal phrase. So these are the main elements of a statement, but basically the subject and the verb are the most essential elements of a sentence or of a statement. The sequence of elements can vary. So we can have on her toast, Denise put marmalade, or marmalade, Denise put on her toast. They are both correct. What is stable here in these two sentences is the order of the subject of the verb and the verb. So far, in English, what is the normal order?
Subject, verb, object.
SVO.
Yes. Yes, subject, verb, object, or SVO. So the subject should be before the verb. However, we can find some sort of exceptions. The subject always precedes the verb unless other words are introduced. So we may find exceptions. What broke was a window. Normally here a window broke, but in some cases we can say what broke was a window. So it is still a valid sentence because we have introduced another word, which is what in this case. Or the one who broke the window was Tom. So normally Tom broke the window, and you know we can talk about the active and the passive. So there are cases in which the verb may precede the subject. Affirmative and negative statements with the same topic and the same predicate are contradictory. We have talked about the topic or the theme, and we have talked about the predicates. So if we have the same topic and the same predicate, and we have one, for instance, let's call it affirmative, as they said here. Let's call it positive, and the other one negative. So one with not and one without not. Can you think of an example? So basically the same statement, the same sentence, one without not and the other one with not. And here they said the result will be a contradictory statement. Or if one is true, the other must be false. If I say, for instance, I am hungry and I am not hungry, one contradicts the other. That's the idea. So I will be the topic in this sentence. So I am the topic, or I am the theme of this. Let's just keep it the topic. So I am the topic of this statement, and hungry. So I am hungry. Then the same. We'll keep the same predicate and the same topics. So and we add not. So we find contradiction. Ellen is a brunette. Ellen is not a brunette. Okay. So it is a contradiction. We cannot have two statements which are correct. So one of them is true, the other one is certainly false. About commands. Affirmative commands, we begin with the verb, which does not change. So normally it begins with a verb. Can someone give me an example?
Close the door.
Yes, close the door will be a very good example. Or yes, be quiet, for instance. However, there is an implied you there. When I say close the door, I have implicitly said you. Okay, so normally it is implied even if it is not there. So I can say be quiet or you be quiet. So it's basically the same. Though we would normally start with the verb and keep the you implied. Close the door and you close the door and so on. Negative commands begin with do not plus the verb. You have given the example of close the door, and we will have do not close the door, and it is a negative command, or don't move, or nobody move, and so on. Affirmative and negative commands with the same lexical content and contradictory. So it's the same thing. The same thing that we have said about let's say declarative sentences. So close the window and don't close the window. We cannot have the two statements at the same time. So either do this or that. Now for the types of questions. How many types of questions we have there?
We have yes/no questions, WH questions, and rhetorical questions.
Yes, in a sense, these are the most basic types. So let's start. We'll talk about I think basically 6 types of questions. We have questions with just rising intonation. So we just rise the intonation of a declarative sentence and we make it a question. Can you give me an example?
Professor?
Yes, go ahead, Naima.
For example, you are leaving without
Yes.
say, are you leaving?
Yes, so you are leaving, it will be a question. Okay, yes, so that's correct. So that's the example they have used. You are leaving now, and the regions won. So just rise the intonation, and they know it is a question. So these are yes/no questions in which the speaker seeks confirmation or denial. So somehow when I say, "Are you leaving?" it means maybe I don't know. But when I say you are leaving now, it basically means I know that you are leaving. Maybe I'm just asking if you will do it now. So that can be the main difference. Okay. I haven't stopped to check your understanding before because I think we are talking about the basics of English. I don't think can have a problem with this so far. Tag questions. Can someone give me an example of a tag question?
It's called.
Yes, it's called, isn't it? Yes. So that's a very good example. You are leaving now, aren't you? Or the ratios won, didn't they? So how do we form tags? How do we form tag questions? What's the rule? The basic rule? Just by looking at what we have here, what is the rule? Why in the first one we have aren't you, and the second one, why didn't we say aren't they? Why did we say didn't they?
Sir,
Yes.
we form tag questions based on the first tense with negative.
Yes, the first tense with negative. So that's the tense that we need to use. But why have we chosen the verb to do in the second one and the verb to be in the first one? So basically it depends on the verb that we have in the original sentence. In the first one we have verb to be, so we keep it. And when we have other verbs, we normally use the verb to do to replace them. It's like with normal questions. If you are, if we say, for instance, you are sick, the question will be, are you sick? And if we say, do you eat this? The question will be, or if let's say the answer is I eat this, the question is, do you eat that? So an operator which matches the verb of the statement. This is what we are talking about. So verb to be is matched with verb to be, and other verbs are matched with verb to do. That's the operator that matches them. And the pronoun which matches the subject. So when we have you, we should keep you, and when we have let's say the Rangers, it means they. So the pronoun should match the subject. Okay. So when do we use tag questions? As I said, for writing intonation, it's for confirmation or denial. For tag questions,
Professor, we use
yes.
tag questions in order to make the others integrate in our conversation.
Okay, in a sense, yes, we do that. In a sense,
Sir?
we try to integrate the others. Yes.
To make sure.
Yes, to make sure. So I are saying just confirmation. So it's you aren't leaving now, are you?
Professor?
I think, yes?
It's like we want to check if the information is correct.
Yes, so check if the information is correct, yes, in a sense, yes. So is there a difference between when you say, for instance, you are leaving now, aren't you? Or you aren't leaving now, are you? I think one of you has started, no? Explaining that before.
Professor.
Yes?
Yes, there is a difference. For example, in the second example, like you don't want the person to leave. You say, you aren't leaving now, are you? Like you
In a
don't,
sense, yes.
like you don't want them to leave.
Ah, yes. So you aren't going to do that, for instance. So that's maybe more inclined towards refusing what the speaker tries to do, in a sense.
Professor?
So rising tone, now this is what will probably make a difference. Rising tone is used when the speaker is really seeking information, and falling tone suggests that the speaker merely wants confirmation. So if we try pronouncing these sentences with a rising tone and then with a falling tone, then you will see maybe the difference. Let's look at the first one. And write the tone. You are leaving now, aren't you? So this is a question. But if it is a falling tone, for instance, you are leaving now, aren't you? For instance, here, confirmation, more than seeking information. Do you see the difference here? The range is 1, didn't they? So didn't they without rising intonation? It means I just want confirmation. So they won. I know, or I knew they will win. So the range is 1, didn't they? So as I told you, something like that. So I just want confirmation because I knew it will happen. And the same thing for you aren't leaving now, are you? So somehow I want you to confirm that you are not leaving now. And if you raise the intonation, and are you? Here maybe you are asking. For disbelief or detachment, an affirmative tag follows an affirmative statement. Can you think of an example? So to show that you what you have heard is really to some extent unbelievable, you will say, "This is a joke, is it?" So this is a joke, and then you say, "Is it?" So it should be, to some extent, this should be a joke. I cannot believe this is, or you are not joking. I cannot believe you are serious. So this must be a joke. So this is a joke, is it? Now asking you, is it really a joke? Or the range is 1, did they? And in this case, I cannot really believe it. I cannot believe they won. Okay, do you see the difference between these two forms?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So more types of questions. Inversion, and that's the type of questions we know. So basically, the first type doesn't include inversion in the form we know it, and you know, when I asked the question, I have basically just heard that we basically have yes no questions and WH questions, and when we think of yes no questions, there is this inversion included. But so we have seen other types that don't include inversion, and now yes no questions or answers put in the operator or empty do first. So either use the operator, whatever it is, then, or empty do first, like are you leaving now, or did the ranges win? So these are the most usual type of questions, and we can have negative inversions, which are most often used when the speaker wants to imply that he or she already knows the answer and is looking for affirmation, like aren't you leaving now, and didn't the ranges win? So for the first type of yes no question, so are you leaving now, I am really seeking information. For the second one, I am looking for affirmation again. Aren't you leaving now? If you think about a situation in which includes a child, for instance, aren't you going to sleep now? So you just need them to confirm. You just need them to say yes. We'll go to sleep now. Something like that. Okay. So when you have inversion plus or, what's the purpose? Aslia? Okay. Would you like coffee or tea? So would you like coffee or tea? And is your son in the army or the navy? So basically we'll have rising intonation in the first one and it falls on the second one. So that arrow there is for intonation. And basically, I would say basically, or most of the time, the first option is the most probable option because that's normally what you would do. You give the first probability, then you move to the second one, the less probable one. Providing alternatives and asking for a choice. So you are asking for a choice, but basically you expect the first one to be the one chosen. Then we will have WH questions. I think we know that. Who found the money, and why are you leaving? The main difference is they carry some sort of presupposition. If I say who found the money, it means as a presupposition that there was money and that it was found. So when I ask this, I know something, and I am asking about what I know to some extent. They ask for new information and they carry presuppositions, as we have just said. Do you get this point of presupposition? So A presupposes that someone found the money, and B presupposes that the addressee is leaving. So when I say, why are you leaving? So I know you are leaving. So I presuppose I have provided some sort of information. I know you are leaving, but why are you doing that? So that's one of characteristics of WH questions. And then we have WH questions with rising intonation. You say, you are leaving when, or when are you leaving? So here, it's not about leaving, it's about the when specifically. Think about it. If we say you are leaving, then some sort of a pause, then when. You are leaving when? Then the question is when, not whether or not you are leaving. Okay? And when are you leaving? So the rising intonation for when means that I'm asking for that specific time. She left it where? Normally, where did she leave it, or something like that, but the form, this form will be, she left it where? So I'm asking for the place specifically, or where did she leave it, again, with focus or intonation, rising with where. They ask for a repetition or confirmation. If you think about it, if someone asks a question, if you ask a question and you get the answer, but you don't believe it, and you want the person to repeat, you may ask this question. You are leaving when? So they have told you a timing that you cannot believe, or you just want them to repeat because you haven't heard them. Okay? So far, we have talked about things that you know, I think from high school. I don't think this is new to you. Maybe you knew some of these elements without the proper names, but I think everyone knows these basics. Okay. Now, just to remind you, we have been looking at these types of questions. We have looked at questions first, then we have looked not first. Last element was questions, and we have seen let's say affirmative sentences. Not affirmative. I have lost the word. So the word I'm looking for is, so I've seen three types of sentences. We have seen questions, then we have seen imperatives, and we have seen declaratives. I'm sorry, declarative is the word I was looking for. So I've looked at declaratives, commands, and questions. We have looked at these forms because they are basically all the types of sentences that we have, and we have tried to look at some details in each one of them. Now we are going to see how they function in speech and the meanings they convey in a way or another. So for the analysis of speech acts, we'll start talking about speech acts in details next week. But this week, we'll just give a general idea. Not all our utterances are statements. They are equally commands or questions. So we don't only have declaratives, we have also commands and we have questions. Basically, the same amount of all of them in all our sentences, in all our use of language. Even our declarative sentences are not always intended to be statements. We have seen that before. We have seen that maybe you just write the intonation and it will become a question. And maybe intonation alone can change the meaning of the question and the purpose it serves. The meeting is called to order. Now, why is this one different? It's not a question. It's not an order. It looks like a declarative sentence, a usual one. But is it a usual one? And why? Let's see another example. This court is now in session. Why is this one a bit different from usual sentence? Think about, for instance,
Professor,
yes,
maybe because in this type of sentence we express like a fact.
In a sense, we may express a fact, and in a sense, we make what happens here is that we make something happen. For instance, when we say the court is now in session, this is some sort of legal obligation. I have to say this for this to happen. For instance, if you are in a court, the session will not start unless someone says that. Unless someone says that the court is now in session. So we have begun. So everything you say from now on will be taken into consideration and will be, to some extent, used against you. So this is legally binding to some extent. And when we say the meeting is called to order, it also has a similar meaning, some kind of legal obligation or legal denotation. They are meant to make things happen. Can you think of another example? Something, when you say it, it makes things happen. For instance, in marriage, not in our society, but in marriage in general, when they say, do you still hear me?
No, Professor.
No, sir.
I'm receiving a call. No. Okay, again, for instance, you hear me now?
Yes, Professor. Yes, Professor.
No, sir.
So when we say, in a marriage, for instance, when they say "I do," that expression, that sentence or expression makes things happen. So just by saying those words, you make something happen. You make the marriage real. So that's the idea. You say something and it makes another thing happen. Yes, Naima?
For example, if someone said, is there anything to eat? So someone will give him or her to eat.
In a sense, that's making a request that is similar, but it is not exactly what we are talking about here. For instance, if someone is married and he says, in Morocco, let's say,
Professor,
you are divorced. Yes? Yes.
or when this when they say I announce you husband and wife.
Yes. When we say, for instance, I pronounce you husband and wife, we have made that legal. We have made marriage legal. So that's correct. So I'm talking, and Naima, I'm talking about legal obligation. So whenever as soon as I say it, it becomes legally obliging to happen. If we can say that. When, as we have said, in our society, if a man says to his wife, I hereby divorce you, for instance, it's the end. That's divorce. He cannot really take it back. Normally, as soon as he says the words, they have been said, and he is divorced. Okay? So words that a man should normally never use because they are legally binding. Here, what they are trying to say, talking about the idea of speech acts, and normally sometimes through our speech, we perform certain acts. This one is the most close to a real act. So normally when you say something and it makes things happen automatically, that's the closest to what we can call a speech act. But there are ones that don't normally oblige the other two to act in that form. And we will see the differences. The study of pragmatic meaning is not about whether a statement is true or false. So forget about what we have seen there. It's about whether the statement works or not in achieving its purpose, whether or not it is felicitous. So we will talk about felicity conditions. And by felicity conditions, it means whether or not it works to achieve the purpose. So this is what I want to say. The felicity conditions, or let's just call them the conditions that I have for my statement to mean this, are these. So it should contain these elements. It should be performed in this way for it to be valid. We'll see examples. We'll see more examples, and I think it will make sense. So today, if you remember, I have told you this last week. I think I will have just to take this call and come back to you. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I am sorry about that. So as I've said, last week we have talked about felicity conditions. I have asked you to look for that specifically, and this is what we will be doing. We'll look at the major types of speech acts, and we'll look for their felicity conditions. So this is the speech act, and these are its felicity conditions. These are the conditions that it should meet for it to be that speech act, if that makes any kind of sense to you. We'll see the examples, and hopefully it makes sense. Speakers have some intention in producing utterances, and addressees always succeed in interpreting the utterance, jokes and sarcasm included. So here, as you know, sometimes we mean what we say, sometimes we don't mean it, and normally people understand that. The reason behind this is that when we use certain elements in our sentences, for instance, in a specific context, it usually has a clear meaning, despite whatever words we have used. And we have seen examples before. What may look like a question is not actually a question all the time, and so on. So here, the idea is the relationship between intention and interpretation. These are the key words here. The sentence, the words themselves don't really matter. If the form of an utterance does not necessarily coincide with the intended function, so if the form does coincide with the intention, how does the hearer correctly know what the speaker's intention is? Can someone answer that?
Professor?
So if the form, let's go ahead, Naima.
Maybe because they know each other, they share the
Yes.
same cultural background, or they are friends.
Yes, that's the idea. Either they know each other personally, or they know each other because they live in the same community, and so on. Sliman, it's the same idea?
Yes, it is.
Yes. So they know each other, or they share the same background. Yes, Khadija?
It may depend on the context.
Yes, it may depend on the context, of course. So normally, the context will affect that. For instance, if you are watching stand-up comedy, you will not expect most of the things said there to be honest, to be true. So they are just made up. Let's say ironic comments on reality. So speech acts and maxims. I think the maxims are the ones we'll see next week. Today we'll see select conditions as well. So every speech act includes 3 elements: locution, which is the utterance itself. So the form, let's call it the form, locution. Then we have elocution, which is the speaker's intention, and we have perlocution, which is the addressee's interpretation. So for meaning to happen, for communication to succeed, what do we need, in your opinion, by looking at these?
Could you, Professor, repeat the question?
For communication to succeed, what do we need? Of these elements, which are the elements that we need?
A sender, receiver, and maybe the message.
Yes, normally a sender, receiver, and the message. Yes.
So
that's one thing. Yes, here.
And maybe a mutual ground, like a mutual context to avoid misinterpretation.
Yes. So a mutual context, in a sense. So that's correct too. And basically, the intention and the interpretation should be the same thing. That's when we can talk about successful communication from the perspective of pragmatics. We care about the utterance itself. What we care about is that the intention and the interpretation will be the same thing. So what we care about is elocution and perlocution. If what I intend is what you understand, maybe I will not even speak. And if you understand, that's all I needed. Sometimes silence has meaning, as you know. So sometimes if you ask me a question and I don't answer, you understand something. That understanding is successful communication, some sort. So my intention was delivered to you. So that's enough as a form of communication. Okay. So if communication is successful, the elocution and perlusion are alike. So this is what we have just said. Then we will talk about cooperative principle or the maxims or rule of conduct. Normally here, we will talk about these cooperative principle in details next week. But as I have said, there are some rules of conduct. There are some, normally in communication, for it to be successful, if you think about it, at least, how do you think we can make it, we should behave in conversation for it to be successful, for the intention to be understood, or for communication to succeed? How do you think we should behave?
Professor, we shouldn't judge. I mean, no judgment. I mean, we should just communicate without any prejudgment to that person who's speaking.
Yes, in a sense. But let me maybe
Sir?
ask you the question in a more direct way. Yes, May.
Yes, we should, in order to make the conversation be successful, we should be more formal and also be true and answer based on the context and
Yes.
not offending and so.
Yes, you have touched basically on three of the maxims of Paul Grice.
Professor?
Basically, yes.
Should be brief, not talkative, and
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So you have basically touched on all the elements we were going to mention. Yes, Latifa.
Also should be explicit, more explicit than implicit.
Yes, in a sense. So say whatever you want to say directly. So basically, I think you have said we should be true. We shouldn't lie. Imagine if people are lying all the time. No one will communicate with the other. So lying should be removed. That's one of the rules of conduct. So that's one of the maxims of Grice. You shouldn't lie to other people. If we keep lying, communication will be failing. So normally I should be true. You have also said that we shouldn't talk too much. Normally, if you ask me, what time is it? And I explain to you how time works. And I talk to you about the beginning of the universe and things like that. That's not communication. I should normally give you the answer to your question. That's also related to relevance. So normally I should be, what I say should be relevant to what you have said. You cannot ask me what time is it and I say, I like cats. So normally there should be some sort of relevance. So these are the main elements. Maximum of quantity requires the speaker to give as much information as the addressee needs, but no more. So don't just keep talking for no reason. The maximum of relevance requires us speakers to make our utterances relative to the discourse going on and the context in which they occur. We have just given the example of time and the cat. The maximum of manner is to be orderly and clear, to avoid ambiguity. So you try, normally as a speaker, you should try to be as clear as possible. And finally, the maximum of quality is to say only what one believes to be true. You don't just keep lying. That's a violation of the maxims of good communication, of the rules of conduct of good communication. We'll see these in details next week, as I have said. What we will focus on today are the felicity conditions of the Speech Act. So this maxim applies only to the given information. We'll see them later. When you try deliberately to mislead the addressee, you are violating the maxims. So when you are lying deliberately, you are violating one of these maxims. When you are giving too much information or not giving enough information on purpose, you are violating these maxims. But when you break the rules, knowing that the addressee will recognize the real message, you are just flouting the maxims. Sometimes we break the rules on purpose, and we know that they will understand. That's the relationship between intention and interpretation. If I am joking, you will know I am joking. If I talk about, for instance, a Moroccan, an Algerian, and an American entering into a bar, you will know it is a joke. Just by saying this, you will know it is a joke. You will never took place. So I am not really violating. I'm not lying to you. I am flouting the maxims. We are playing with these norms to achieve a purpose, which is a joke in this case. Okay?
Oh.
Yes?
I just wanted to add, because the rules of conduct doesn't mean they have to be one of the maxims to achieve a different purpose.
Yes. Go ahead.
Like how in the honesty maxim, comedians, storytellers, and politicians break it all the time.
Yes. So they break it all the time to achieve some kind of other purpose. Maybe just making their texts for their, what they say, more beautiful or more convincing or dramatic or something like that. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Yasir. So it is in this case when, as Yasir just said, when we do it on purpose, it's called flouting the maxims. But if you are just lying, it is breaking the maxims. So that's the difference. And we flout the maxims all the time. And I think we also violate the maxims all the time. We, as people, are basically liars, I think. We lie all the time. Sometimes we lie just to be polite. And sometimes it's just part of a human being to lie from time. Felicity conditions, as we have said. So what are felicity conditions so far? We have explained this before today. So what are felicity conditions? Okay. So they are the conditions that should be met, as we have said before, just the conditions that should be met for, let's say, a specific statement to serve a specific purpose. We can talk about lexical conditions and we can talk about conditions that are related to the context. We'll see how that works. An utterance has a purpose. In order to achieve that purpose, to be appropriate to that purpose, several conditions are necessary. The lexical content of the utterance must be appropriate. I cannot talk about dogs and expect you to understand I'm talking about books. So normally the lexical content should be appropriate. I should be using the appropriate words. I should be using the appropriate structure. If it is a question, I should formulate it as a question, and so on. So the lexical content should be appropriate. The social situation in which it occurs must be appropriate. Again, normally when you talk in a certain way, in certain conditions, as we have said, a man can divorce his wife, as we have said. In Morocco, the wife cannot divorce the man. So the context or the social situation does not really allow that to happen. The wife cannot really divorce the man. You cannot really divorce your employer, for instance. You work for a company, you cannot just go until the employer I divorce you. So that doesn't apply to that social situation. The speaker must be sincere in what he says. So normally, you should mean what you are saying whenever you say it. That's one thing. And it should, on the other hand, it should be accepted by the hearer as having that purpose. Imagine you are walking in the street and let's say a policeman comes and says you are under arrest. You will take it as a sincere thing and you will accept it. But let's say a woman that you don't know approaches you. She is not dressed as a police officer, and she says you are under arrest. Would you believe that? Normally you wouldn't accept that, you wouldn't believe that, you wouldn't take it as true, and probably they are just joking, maybe she is just a friend or something like that. So the idea is that all these conditions should be met for an utterance to be whatever it is. These are the felicity conditions of that utterance. Okay, is this clear? Because we'll need them in the rest of the class. So are they clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. So for I will say for the last two, being sincere and to be accepted, they will keep happening all the time. The other ones we will see how they can be different sometimes. Okay. So it's basically the first and the second one, the ones that will keep changing the most. They will keep changing in the sense that, for instance, when we talk about the lexical content, and keep that in mind, normally you should use specific words to mean specific things. That's why it will keep changing. But and for the social situation, you should have this specific context for this to be true in a sense. But for the last one, you should always be sincere, and the here should always accept that. So this will always be two conditions that will always be there. Okay, so these are the felicity conditions, and they are different from the maxims. These ones are 4, and the other ones are 4 too. So don't confuse them. Okay, we'll see today felicity conditions for different speech acts. That's how it works. We'll see the speech acts and its felicity conditions, link them together in this sense. When we talk about the maxims, we will be talking about something else. Okay, please keep that in mind. So if you are asked to provide the felicity conditions for a specific speech act, or imagine, for instance, you are given a sentence and asked to decide which speech act it belongs to, as soon as you are asked that question, you should provide the felicity conditions for that specific sentence and what it meets and what it doesn't meet. Normally, this will be the form of the question. You will be given an utterance in a specific context, and you will be asked to decide which speech act it belongs to, and then if it meets these felicity conditions and how it should be classified, or why it is classified as such. So pay attention to how we classify speech acts and how the felicity conditions of each one works. Assertive utterances. You make an assertion means, what do we mean by making an assertion? It's somehow making a claim. Let's see the example.
Professor,
we are writing. Yes, Latifa.
We can say the main purpose of assertive utterance is to inform.
Yes, the main purpose is to inform. Yes, that's correct. So we make a claim. For instance, I will say the Earth is bigger than the sun. That's a claim. Whether it is true or not, that's something else. But if I say, like here we are writing a new book, this also can be true, can be a lie, but it is an assertive utterance. I am making an assertion. I am making a claim. That's the idea. This one is a bit informal. I will see the formal way. It might get cooler again. So again, notice this. We can make a claim and say that we are certain of something, and we can make a claim. We say we think it may happen, and it may not happen, and it is still a claim. Okay, but it's still assertion. Whether we are sure or we are not, it is still a claim. Keep it in mind. Don't be confused. So when you see that someone is not sure what a claim he's making, it is still an assertive utterance. Take notes or do something to remember that. Speakers utter them to inform or tell what they know or believe. So if it is what I know, then it is an assertion. And even if it is what I just believe, like the second one, it is still a claim. It is still an assertion. Assertive utterances are either true or false. So it may get cooler again, and it may not. I am writing a book, or maybe I am not really writing a book. So it depends. They are subject to empirical investigation. That's what we should know about them. You can test whether these things are true or false. You can test whether or not I am writing a book. So that's how we know we are talking about assertive utterances. You can see them in the real world. Now, remember, we have talked about the lexical content of speech acts. And now, for the first one, for the assertive speech acts, the direct ones should contain I or we and an assertive verb. Can someone think of an example?
Professor?
Yes?
Like the example of I announce you, man and wife. The verb announce is a assertive verb.
No, but Latifa, that's a bit different. We'll see how we call those. But in that one, we make something happen. That's different. Here, I am telling you, I am making a claim about reality, for instance. I am saying this is what I know, something that happened, or something that will happen. I am not making it happen. So that's maybe the difference. I will give you an example.
Professor?
Yes?
For example, I think the book is complicated.
Yes, we can say I think the book is complicated, and it can be. So this is my belief. You can test it. You can see whether it is or whether or not it is complicated. So I have used I, and maybe think with it. So it means I am making a claim. So that's correct, Sliman. Here, maybe the most assertive verb will be declare. We declare that we are writing a new book. So here we are announcing it. We are making very formal assertion. We are writing a new book. Okay? Or I predict, like I think that Sliman has just said, I predict or I think that it will get cooler again tomorrow. You know that we can remove that from there. So I predict it will get cooler again tomorrow, but the idea is the same. So we have we or I. So if it is a direct assertive, I will be asserting it or we will be asserting it. If we say they claimed or they declared, then it is indirect. It's what they declared, and I am just reporting it. But when I say I declare or I predict or we declare, then it is a direct one. Do you get this? So assertive verbs are comments on a state of affairs followed by full clause. Like I declare, and then we have that and the full clause. Okay? I predict that, then the full clause. As you will notice here, the full clause here, the one that we had on top, which is we are writing a new book. Okay. The one we had here, which is are writing a new book, that was our original clause. To make it direct and to make it more formal, so the direct one, we added we declare and that, and then we gave the statement. Okay? Assertive verbs and are comments on a state of affairs followed by full clause. We have read that before. And there are different assertive verbs. You may just look at them. We are not going to read each one of them. But you can see on the first one, like the ones that we have seen before. I declare, I announce, I mention, I relate, I report, I explain, and you add that, and you add your claim. Okay? Sometimes we focus on the truth value of the utterance. So whether it is, for instance, am I confirming it? For instance, I swear that he is a criminal. I attest that he is a criminal. I claim that he is. So it depends. When I swear, I am sure. When I say I bet, then there is some sort of doubt. I attest, I am sure again. I claim, so maybe I believe that, but I'm not really sure. And so on. Okay? Speaker's commitment or involvement, for instance, I denied, I profess, I protest. So when I say, for instance, I protest, and we add the clause, it means I don't really accept it. So here I'm some sort of giving my opinion about something like that. For instance, denying something. So again, it means that you are against it. Manner of communication. Again, I don't think we'll need to read all these, but manner of communication, for instance, when I say, for instance, I hint something, so it's normally this is how I said it. This is how I declared it. I didn't really say it directly. I said it in an indirect way. I imply, for instance, I emphasize again. So I emphasize that I am writing a book. So I wanted to be sure that I'm doing that. Then the nature of the message, it can be dictated. I think you know what we mean by dictate. So for instance, I'm just saying it and someone else is writing it. So I am dictating that I am doing something like that. Narrating and preaching, for instance, preaching in churches, for instance. Or on aspect, something happened in the past, something in the future. I think you can just look at this and understand what they mean specifically. Reported assertives. So the first ones are direct assertives. I declare that we are doing that, or that I am doing that, something like that. But reported assertives, Jarvis announced that he is voting for Aronson. So now it's Jarvis making the announcement. It's I am making the announcement about him. So it is indirect. This is reported. Then what are the felicity conditions for assertives when it comes to form or lexical content. What are the conditions? We have just mentioned them, so I just want you to answer just the first part, the lexical content. How should it be? For a speech act to be a direct speech act, an assertive speech act, it should be. Okay, maybe we should see the first one. So just I or we, then the assertive verb. That's the idea. That's the rule we have just today.
So
it should start with I or we and the assertive verb. Yes.
It should consist of the subject I or we, the assertive verb, and finally a full clause.
Yes, and normally a full clause. Yes. Yes. So that's basically the main form. Okay. What is reported must be feasible. So I will not tell you I am, for instance, I declare that I am eating the earth. That's something that cannot happen. So it shouldn't, even if it's reported in this form, it is not really assertive utterance. It means something else. So it must be something that can be done. That's the social condition. That's the only condition we have. It should be something possible. Okay, writing a book is possible, raining tomorrow is possible, and so on. The speaker commits himself to the truth of what is reported. So we said he means what he's saying. If you remember, we said that the third one and the fourth one will almost always be the same, with slight differences. I will see them later, but basically the same. You should be honest, and the other one should accept it. Here, the second one has changed. So it should be feasible. If it is something that cannot be done, it will not be part of it. So are we on assertive utterances? This is where and for assertive utterances, we'll see other types. Is it clear?
Professor?
Yes?
So I'm just wondering about the pronoun I and we. Can we talk about assertive utterances if we use another pronoun, for example, she or he, or another pronoun?
No, normally in that case, you will be reporting it. It will be a reported assertive and not a direct one. So for the direct one, for the most formal and the most direct one, you should say, I declare this, or we predict that. So it should be pronounced by the person doing it. And then it is reported if someone else says it. However, most of the time, you will not really find these expressions there. You will find, for instance, just we are writing a new book. So it will be an indirect assertive utterance. So it's still an assertive, but you will mention that it doesn't meet the first felicity condition, which is containing I and we.
And maybe it will not meet the second condition. For example, we will not be able to figure out is it true or not, because the speaker is he or she, so we cannot know if he or he are talking seriously or saying the truth.
Yes. So yes, that's also a possibility. We may not know other elements of the sentence. That's correct. We may not know other felicity conditions, but as I have said, would normally judge on the day of the exam. I'm just talking about the day of the exam. You will normally judge what is given to you. You will not know about its truth unless it is clearly not true. The example I have given you, for instance, about eating earth or something like that, you know it is not true. So that's how you will judge it. If you don't have that, you just say that it should be feasible, and it is something feasible. So you judge the action that you are given, can or cannot, the end. Then for the last one, he should commit himself to the truth. So if he is lying, I don't know. And it should be accepted. I don't know about that too. So it's you will decide based on what you are given. Performative utterances. Here we go back to an example that we have seen before. I now pronounce you husband and wife. That's the difference maybe between announce and pronounce. When it is a performative utterance, but declare can be used in both. For instance, I declare that I'm writing a book, or I declare war on you. For instance, I am a country, I am talking to a representative of or another country, I will say I am declaring war on you. That's a performative utterance. As soon as I say it, it becomes a legally binding fact. I declare this meeting adjourned again, the same thing. So by saying this, it means what the following words are supposed to mean. Okay. Can you think of another example of a performative utterance?
So,
yes, sir.
When the judge says with the power, with my authority, I declare you guilty.
For instance, I think they are the ones who say that the most. We believe that the defendant, for instance, is guilty. By saying the word guilty at that moment, unguilty, you will change the fate of another person. Yes, Asiya?
For example, in the company, he said, you are hired.
You are?
Hired. I mean,
yes, that's correct. When you say you are hired,
Professor?
and when you say you are fired, for instance, they are both legally binding. Yes, Latifa?
For example, the ceremony is postponed.
Yes.
Is it a performative utterance or not?
Yes, normally to some extent, I think it can take some sort of performative form. But now I want you to tell me about the felicity conditions of performative sentences. Look at them and tell me about the felicity conditions. Okay. Yes.
Professor?
Yes.
We need a pronoun either I or we, plus
yes.
plus performative verbs.
Yes, that's correct.
Then a full.
Yes, can you?
Then a full clause after performative verbs.
No, in this case, it's not necessary. So just focus on the first one. So I or we plus declarative verb. Yes. What else? Let's move. Here you have talked about the lexical content. Now talk about something else. The next condition. What should it be? Think about it. What are the social conditions in this case? Think about it. We have talked about many examples, and it's about. I don't want to say it. I think you will get that without needing my help.
Professor?
Yes.
It takes place in formal sitting with the official acts.
Yes, normally. The formal setting. I cannot just sit in the street and whenever I see a couple, I say, I declare you husband and wife and I'm married. So it should be, the social context should be suitable, formal enough for that to happen. Okay. Now, for the third and the fourth one, in this one, they will have to change. As we have said, we've given the example of police officer before. For instance, if I say, you are under arrest, what should I be to say that? I should be a police.
You should
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, a police, but the one who addresses it should be guilty.
Yes, in a sense. So I should have, in a matter of authority, I should have authority, and he should recognize that I have authority for him to to accept to be arrested. Okay, so this is conditions for this one are bit. However, we'll not start with them. I just wanted to see, understand the principle, and I think you do. Speech act that bring about the state of affairs their name, like bids and bulletins and firings and baptisms and arrests. And in a baptism, what should normally happen? What is a baptism first?
Professor?
Yes, go ahead.
Professor?
Once the priest or the Christian, authority in a church declare a person a Christian person.
Yes, when they declare someone a Christian, yes, that's correct. Yes, here, do you want to say something?
They do a certain way to declare this. They do some sort of ceremony to declare that this person is now being a Christian. They put the baby or the birth person into water, and they with some sort of chanting, some sort of I don't know, Christian items.
Saying specific, using specific formula, for instance, specific words, for instance, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Like
yes.
I will this or that. Yes, that's correct. Yes, here. So that's basically it. So
thank
in some, yes, thank you. So for some performative utterance to happen and to have their effects, we should have specific conditions, and we should have used specific formulas, for instance, and those will make that happen. If we don't say use the right formula, then it's not going to be accepted for it. Like marrying someone who I've seen, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Normally we should use that form specifically, otherwise it will not work. If they don't say I do, they say I accept, it will not work. They should say I do, and so on. If for instance, you can tell, for instance, if you are a husband, you can tell your wife, I don't want to live with you anymore. It doesn't mean divorce, though it means I don't want to see your face again, and it doesn't mean divorce. So it is normally worse than divorce, but it doesn't mean divorce. So, but when you say I divorce you, then it means what it means. So that's the idea. Performative verbs include bet, declare. Yes, go ahead, Yasir.
Sorry for the interruption, but I think they have a name for that condition. It's called legally separated. It's when the couple is no longer together, but they are still legally married. It's just not under the same roof again.
We call that legally separated.
Yes.
I have never heard about this one. I don't really know how it would work. So how would it work to be legally separated but not divorced?
It's like the middle ground when they don't want to see each other, but they aren't sure if they do want to get divorced yet, because divorces are so expensive. It's like the break time to work things out before to become sure whether they want a divorce or not, because it's a very expensive move, so they have time to think about it.
So is this move legal or just let's say informal? So they just agree to live separately, because
yes.
it is legal. So is it legal or informal?
It is informal.
Informal.
Yes, if it is informal, maybe yes, they can agree on it. I thought you are talking about some sort of situation, legal situation, but it makes sense, and I think it happens. It happens a lot. It also includes bet, for instance. I bet this will happen in this way, for instance. Sometimes it's just words we say, but sometimes it is binding. For instance, if you are playing a game and you put some of money, or for instance, in some situations, if you are in a casino, for instance, you bet on something then you have bet on that thing, and you will have to pay if you lose. And you name someone a knight, for instance, or something like that. So things like that, or pronounce or nominate, and so on. I declare this meeting adjourned is an explicit performative. So as we have said, I or we, then the word declare. This meeting is adjourned if spoken by the same person is an implicit one. So if spoken by this person, this is what we have said before about assertive statements, and we'll say it again about performatives. If I say directly with the right words, it is an explicit one. If I say it just, for instance, this meeting is adjourned, just alone. So if spoken by the same person, then it is implicit one. Then it can also be reported if we say that James declared that the meeting, or the manager declared that the meeting is adjourned. For blessings and curses, how can we see them as? Can you give me an example of a blessing or a curse?
Professor?
Yes?
For example, may God protect us.
Yes. So, if we are going to talk about the idea of authority, why do you think a person who says that, so what kind of authority do you have to say that? We'll read the definition and we'll discuss the definition. Look just at the highlighted parts. Blessings and curses can bring down divine favor on another. Do you think that's what they mean? Using some formula, like make. So if I and make that happen to you, if I say God bless you, I think God may provide me with favor and make that happen to you. In Arabic, we would say, for instance, even for invoking pain or punishment, for instance, when they say alayka al-la'na, for instance, they expect God for to perform some kind of bring down some sort of favor and make something happen for it. So that's normally what we say. So what do you think about this one? The question is, what do you think happens when you say, for instance, to someone alayka al-la'na, or whatever, however you say it, for instance, in Moroccan Arabic? How do you see it? How do you see these performatives?
Professor, like you wanted to make him suffer or something when you say alayka al-la'na. It's like you want him to get hurt.
Yes, normally. So we just say it and we expect that to happen to them somehow. Yes, so you expect them to suffer. So that also is included. So the felicity conditions, we have discussed them, and I think you have got the gist. The subject of the sentence must be I or we. So the verb must be in the present tense. That's also a specific condition. Time, place, and other circumstances, as we have said. It should be a formal setting. The speaker must be recognized to have an authority to make the statement, and the acceptance of the addressee of this authority. So these are the felicity conditions of performative utterances. Okay. I will take you back to valency, just to discuss some sort of form that we will need to have in the future. Okay. Remember, we have seen valency 0, valency 1, valency 2, and 3. We didn't really see examples of valency 3. We'll see them now. See how they will help us understand some type of speech acts. We can talk about verbs of transition or transfer. When we have them, then we can talk about valency of 3, or maybe even more. Because normally we have the one performing the action, and then we have the thing that is being moved, and we have the destination where it goes. So valency of 3. We need 3 elements in this case. The bus goes from Greenville to Stratford, or Carlo came to this country from Italy. So here, what are the main elements that we have in this sentence? in terms of valency?
Sir?
Yes?
We have the actor, the action, and the source and the receiver, and the goal.
Yes, that's basically it. We have two differences here. We have the bus and we have Carlo. So that's the basic difference, the main difference here. The bus and Carlo. One is alive, animate. One is inanimate. That will change the term we use for them, but for the rest, it is basically the same. So when it is a bus, it is called a theme. When it is Carlo, it is called an actor. For the rest, the action is going, and the source is the place they moved from, and the place they moved to is the goal. Okay? I think it's clear. Is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Professor.
Yes, Professor.
So it's not really that challenging. Now, can you think of the valency of this one? Can you think of the elements that we should have here? Okay, I think we are a bit late. We'll have just to move a bit faster. So we have the source, we have the predicates, we have the theme, and we have the goal. So basically the same thing. But as you can see, the theme doesn't always have to be the first one. For receive, it changes. Again, the theme is the same position, but the goal is the first one and the source is the last one. Okay. Now we have sentence theme. That's what we need for the rest of the elements that we are going to see for the next 4 speech acts. Ivan knows the answer. That's knowledge is some sort of maybe related to feelings, so some sort of affect. So Ivan will be the one affected by this knowledge, and we have the answer. But in this case, Ivan knows that we are here. In this case, I am sure you have seen that in syntax. So we have one clause embedded with another clause, and that makes us have 2 themes and 2 predicates, and that's why we need to see this form. So Ivan knows that we are here. So it depends. So normally we have two sentences, one within the other. Okay. Does it make sense to you?
Yes, Professor.
Yes, okay, thank you. So it is the theme for the first one, but it is another sentence. So for the first sentence, Ivan knows what? He knows this thing. He knows the answer first. So it is the theme. But when he knows that we are here, then the theme is another, clause is another, some sort of sentence. Yes, yes, yes?
I just wanted to make sure. So in the first one, Ivan is affected by the knowledge of the answer, but in the second one, he is affected by the knowledge of the people, we.
Of the fact that we are here. So it's a fact. The fact is we are here. So it's affected by the knowledge of this fact. Okay.
Yes. And this fact is consists of 2 parts, a theme and a place. While the first one was only a theme consisting of 1 part.
Yes, for the first theme, it consists of just 1 part. No, the same theme is another sentence. It can be, it can contain another predicate, as we have said, depending on the sentence. But here we have theme and place, and between them maybe we can have link. R will be link. So normally theme and place are parts of the second theme. It can be a full sentence. For instance, it can be, Ivan knows that we are happy to be here. So it will be a full sentence.
Yes.
We are happy to be here. Yes, Latifa? Yes?
I understand.
Professor,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Latifa?
is like the second sentence functions as an object of the predicate or giving information about the predicate.
Yes. So the whole sentence is the object of first predicate, but it is another sentence. We should analyze it normally independently. Okay. We have seen that even last year in S4, I'm sure you don't remember that, but we have seen, we have talked about CP and we have talked about TP, if I remember. And when we talked about CP, so it is introduced by
complementizer.
Yes, the complementizer. Yes, that's correct. So that's what we need to remember, we need to have in mind before talking about verdictive utterances. Verdictive, some sort of given a verdict or given a judgment to some extent. I accuse you of putting on airs. Putting on airs means acting arrogant in a sense. I congratulate you for performing so well. So I'm accusing you of you did that. I congratulate you for what you did or something that you did. Keep this in mind. I am the one congratulating you for something you did. That's the main form of verdictive utterances. Okay? Verdicts are speech acts in which the speaker makes an assessment or judgment about the acts of another. So you did something wrong, I accuse you. You did something good, I congratulate you, and so on. Okay? The act that I can congratulate you on is something that happened in the past or the future.
In the past.
In the past. Whether I am congratulating you or accusing you, it should be something that happens in the past. These include ranking, assessing, appraising, condoning, and so on. Predictive verbs include accuse, charge, excuse, thank. So I'm thanking you for whatever you have done for me and something like that. So the action is viewed positively. I commend you for, so I commend and then the space for you or so the person I'm talking to for whatever they have done. I compliment you for this. I praise you for this and so on. The action is beneficial to the speaker. So I'm thanking you for what you have done. I am grateful to you for what you have done. So you have this formula. I, something, one of these, let's say, verbs. Then we have you normally, and then we have for, or of, as you can see with accuse, and we have another clause. That's why we needed to see valency of 3, and that's why we need to see the sentence theme. So we have the first part, and we have for, and then we have another clause. The action is beneficial to the speaker. I said thank or grateful to you for. Remember this now, so that it will not confuse in the future. In this case, so thank you for something, or grateful to you for something. This is a bit more formal and more real. I am grateful to you for what you did on the other day or something like that. So it is real. It's not like, for instance, when just a meeting ends, for instance, and people say thank you or something like that. It's not really similar to this one. So there is a slight difference. Keep this in mind. We'll see it today. The action is viewed negatively. For instance, I accuse you, or I blame you for, okay, and so on, which is as you for. So it's presupposed the truth of the performance. I am sure you did this, and that has given me a positive or negative or beneficial impression, and I am expressing it. Okay? They are retrospective. As retrospective means they talk about the past. As they present the speaker's assessment of what has befallen the addressee on his previous actions. So, or what has befallen the addressee or his previous actions. So it is retrospective. It talks about the past of something that has happened to you or something that you have done. So one of two possibilities. Either something that happened to you, so I congratulate you for passing the exam successfully, or no, I think that's something that you have done. Something that has befallen you, for instance, I congratulate you for healing so quickly or something like that. Okay? So two possibilities, something you did and something that happened to you. But remember, it is retrospective. It talks about something that happened in the past, and it talks about something that was done by the addressee. Keep that in mind. So retrospective and addressee. Here, as you can see, it is retrospective. So let's say the object of the first sentence is retrospective. It is something that happened in the past. This clause should be something that happened before. And then, see here, I and you, I congratulate you, for instance, on what you did. I hope clear. On what you did in the past. Okay? Or what happens to you in the past. So we should have you, and it should be retrospective. I'm focusing on this. When we'll see the next elements, I don't want you to be confused. The teacher excused or pardoned Henry for missing the meeting. So again, as we see here, he pardoned someone for doing something. The verbs excuse or pardon express speech act that do more than comment on an alleged previous action, but they presuppose the truth of that action. We have seen that before. So that action should have taken place for it to be assessed or commented on. Felicity conditions for verdictives are the explicit frame. We need this form. I congratulate I something you for doing something. Okay. You can also see that the ing should be happening, should be there. But this is the explicit form. We can have indirect forms like the one with the teacher. In that case of the teacher, it is reported, not direct one. Okay. Ability of the addressee to perform the act. The ability, my ability to congratulate you, for instance, or accuse you of something, and then perhaps the last two will probably always be the same. Sincerity of the speaker, and addressees believe that the speaker is sincere. Those ones don't change. So it's basically about the first one and the ability to perform the act. So it is something possible. It is something to happen, that can happen. I can congratulate you for something that people can do. If I say, for instance, I congratulate you for killing the dragon. Dragons don't exist. You cannot really kill dragons. So I have broken some of the felicity conditions. Okay, are we clear?
Yes, Professor.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, expressive utterances. Here, if we can say that, these are the opposite of what we have seen before, and we'll see why. We admit that we were mistaken. So what's the difference here? What's the difference between expressive and the one that we have seen before?
Professor?
If you remember, the first thing I was trying to focus on is I, you. Yes, Latifa.
Is like the first sentence derived or related to the second, or same, or like that.
Yes, they are related. But as if you will notice here, for the verdictive utterances, I and you. I accuse you of doing something. I congratulate you for performing something. But here it is, we admit that we were mistaken. So here the difference.
Yes, Professor.
Yes.
Professor.
Yes, Mohammed. Yes, go ahead, Mohammed.
In this example, we notice that the source and the team are the same.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mohammed. That's correct. So we congratulate. For instance, we admit that we are the ones who did something. It is still in the past. The action is still something that took place in the past, but I am the one who did the action. So that's the difference. If it is a verdictive, I'm judging you for what you did. It is expressive. I am expressing some feelings about what I did. Okay? An express utterance space from the previous actions or failure to act of the speaker. So not the addressee this time. Keep that in mind. Expressive utterances are thus retrospective. So still talking, retrospective means talking about the past, and speaker involved. The action of the speaker. So this is the difference. So here, I remember before we had you here. Now we have we. So it is something that I did or we did. So that's basically the difference. And it is still retrospective. Express verbs are it was feasible, the speaker was capable of it. Again, I will not apologize for dragons. The speaker speaks sincerely, and the adversary believes it. Okay, so if you see, we are playing things. Who performed the action and where it plays in the past or in the future. Now we'll see. We'll see directive utterances, the third form, and still related, as we have said, to what we have said before. So directive, giving directions to other people, telling them what to do. This can happen in two ways, and we'll see the two ways here. Are we clear on the first one? Expressive utterances. Do we have a question? Okay. If you don't have questions, we'll have to move to the next one. As I said, directive utterances. I say wait here, implicit to there. Turn to page 164. So I'm kind of giving you commands or orders or telling you what to do. So it is normally, what type of sentence normally do we use here?
Imperative.
Imperative sentence. Normally it is about imperative sentences. Okay? So given orders normally. Directive utterances are those in which the speaker tries to get the adversary to perform some act. So I'm trying to get you to do something or refrain from doing it. So asking you to do something or not to do something. Directive utterance has to pronounce has the pronoun you as the actor. So again, we moved back to you. If you remember, in verdictives, it's about what you did. In expressive, it's about what I did. And again, in directive utterances, it's about what you
must or should do.
Yes. So is it the past or the future?
It's in the future.
The future, yes. I cannot ask you to do something in the past, so it is about the future, and that's the difference. Directive utterance is prospective. Remember, we used retrospective, talk about the past, and we use prospective, talk about the future. One cannot tell other people to do something in the past. A command is effective only if the speaker has some degree of control over the actions of that. So we have commands as one sort of directive utterance. Commands differ in their degree of explicitness. So they can be explicit or less explicit. I hereby order you to appear in court next Monday at 10 a.m. Or I hereby means by this act, by saying this, I order you to appear in court next Monday. So this is a direct, very explicit order. You will have to obey it because it's probably produced by a judge or something like that. Or you must appear in court next Monday. Maybe here just your friend may tell you that to remind you or something. You must appear in court next Monday. So it is still a command, but it is less explicit. Okay. Smoking is not permitted in the lavatories. Again, less explicit. Report of a command. So sometimes it is the command given directly. Sometimes we can just report it like the previous speech act. The boss demands that these letters should go out today. The direct one will be I demand that these letters should go out today. But this is just a reported form. The general meaning of a command then is speaker in authority is a command. speaker in authority expresses a wish that addressee should act as a speaker wants addressee to act. So I am the speaker. I will ask you. I am asking you to act in the way I want you to ask, and that's because I am in authority, and you will have to do that. That's a command. Predicates that can be used in explicit commands, and therefore in the reports of commands are the positive ones. I charge, I command, I direct, I order, I tell you. Positive ones, they ask you to do something. Negative ones, I forbid you from doing something. They forbid you from doing something. So I hope it's clear for the first type of directive utterances. Do you have a question? So what you should basically remember, you should be in authority. That's one thing. And again, it should be addressing, it's the addressee that will perform the act, and he will perform it in the future. Keep these things in mind. And we have directive utterances, but these ones are requests. So we have talked about commands before. Now we are talking about requests, expressions of what the speaker who does not have authority over the addressee wants the latter to do or refrain from doing. So it's still directive. I am still asking you to do something, but in the first part I was ordering you, and now I am asking you because I don't really have authority. We still have another type. So we have commands, we have requests, and we will see another type. Keep that in mind. We beg you to stay out of the way. So I am begging you. I don't really have any kind of authority over you. The receptionist asks the people in the waiting room not to smoke. So just asking. I'm not. It's not forbidden. I am not using legal terms or anything. So speaker, the general meaning, speaker not in authority expresses wish that addressee not to act as speaker wants the addressee to act or not to act. Ask is unmarked, so I can say ask, and it is neutral. When I say appeal to you, or appeal to your sense of humanity, for instance, or something like that, it is a bit that it shows that you have some kind of authority over me. If I am appealing to your sense of kindness, then it means you have a real high authority over me. When we say petition, I think you know petitions, so they are usually formal and in writing. And beseech is, they said here, archaic. It's an ancient form of making a request instead of saying ask. Oh, and we can also have implore, entreat, and beg, which also show that you have some kind of authority, and they are stronger form. Sometimes you can beg someone who doesn't really have authority over you, but it will be for some rhetorical. For instance, I am begging you not to kill yourself. For instance, I am a police officer and you want to commit suicide. I am begging you not to kill yourself. It just means I don't want you to do it. It doesn't really mean you have authority or something. So I have commands, we have requests, and now I have suggestions. Asking you to do something, but not really asking, not really commanding. That's something else. I am giving you my opinion. Or opinions, I am giving you some sort of choice. I advise you to be prompt. I warn you not to be late. So it's not really requested. I am giving you advice. So something in between. Still asking you to do something. It is still directive, but a different form. Is this clear? So we have just 3 forms here. General meaning is speaker expresses opinion about addressee's choice of performance. So probably you have 2 choices, and I'm giving you my opinion about one of them. Is it clear?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. So positive ones and negative ones, caution, warn, and felicity conditions. The feasibility of the act and ability of the addressee. So it will be something that could be done. For a command to be felicitous, the addressee must accept the speaker's authority. That's one thing. For a request, the speaker's wishes. And for a suggestion, the speaker's judgment. Okay. So these are the second felicity conditions. We have talked about the first elements. Now, for command, authority, for a request, just to wish, and for a suggestion, just believing in your judgment.
Sir?
Yes?
You ask people, for example, not to smoke. Sometimes, or most of the time, is imperative. Like, it is not a choice.
As we have said, it depends on who has the authority. So that's why we have authority there in bold and underlined here. So normally, if you don't really have authority in me or over, for instance, the client, they have given the example of a receptionist. If I say no, what can you do? Normally, because we are polite as human beings, we get requests and we just say yes. But normally, she will ask and I will say no, and she has nothing to do about it. Okay? So it depends on authority.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So as we have said now for directive utterances, it's I doing, for instance, directing you to do something. That's different. The last or penultimate, I think, speech act be again in this formula of I and asking you, for instance. In this case, it will be talking about myself and about the future. It is commissive utterance. It is about commitment. It is about promises, basically. I commit myself to do something. Yes?
Professor, sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to inform you that we have a session now with Professor Imams. He just sent the link.
Okay. Then it's okay. Then we'll have to stop here, I think. To make this feasible, not to. Okay, we'll finish from here next week. And that's it. Yes, I'm sorry for keeping you that late. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Professor. Have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you very much.